You say you have no money. You say your pockets are empty, your bank account is dry, and the bills are piling up. Good, because now you're finally ready to listen. You're finally in the place where most people begin their true journey, not with wealth, not with comfort, but with hunger, with fire, with nothing but a dream and a decision. You see, money doesn't make the man. Money only amplifies what already exists. If you don't have strength without it, you won't have strength with it. If you don't have vision broke, you won't have clarity rich. The world will try to convince you that value comes from what you own. But here's the truth. The greatest fortunes in history were built on nothing but an idea, a relentless spirit, and the refusal to quit. When you have nothing, you are standing at one of the most powerful and honest starting points in life. It may not feel like it, but beginning with empty hands forces you to confront reality in its rawest form. There are no illusions of comfort, no distractions from convenience. There's only you, your thoughts, your fears, and your decisions. And in that silence, in that space where excuses can no longer hide behind possessions or status, you get the rare opportunity to see what you're truly made of. Many people fear starting with nothing. They fear being broke, being overlooked, being on the outside of success. But that fear is often rooted in ego, not truth. Because when you start with nothing, you have nothing to lose. You're free from the expectations that bind so many others. You're not burdened by protecting a reputation or holding on to what you have. You're in a position to take risks, to think boldly, to chase ideas that others are too cautious to pursue, and that's where real growth happens. Not when everything is secure, but when everything is uncertain and you move forward anyway. Without money, you begin to understand what truly matters. You realize that your desire to change your life must be stronger than your desire to stay comfortable. You discover that your time, your energy, and your focus are your greatest assets, and you learn how to use them wisely. You begin to see that success is not about what you have, it's about what you're willing to become. The absence of material wealth forces you to sharpen your internal tools. You become more creative, more resourceful, more resilient. You develop mental toughness that cannot be bought, only earned. Most of the world's great achievers started at zero. They didn't have wealth or connections. What they had was an unshakable belief that their current situation was not their final destination. They learned to leverage their limitations, to see obstacles as fuel for ambition. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't wait for the perfect conditions. They acted. And in acting, they began to carve out a life that once only existed in their minds. Starting with nothing gives you the space to build something that is entirely yours. Your vision, your way, shaped by your values and experiences. It's not borrowed success. It's not handed down. It's earned. And because it's earned, it's lasting. Money is often mistaken as the ultimate measure of a person's worth. Society rewards material possessions with admiration and respect, making it easy to fall into the belief that the more you have, the more valuable you must be. But this perception is not only misleading, it's dangerous, because it allows people to define themselves by what's in their pockets rather than what's in their hearts and minds. True value isn't found in currency. It's found in character, discipline, ideas, and the ability to persevere through hardship without losing sight of your vision. When you strip away money, the real version of a person is revealed. Take away the job title, the car, the clothes, and what's left. What do you stand for when nothing is standing for you? What are you capable of when there's no check coming at the end of the month? These are the questions that reveal strength, not your financial statements. Because having money doesn't make you valuable, it makes you temporarily comfortable. But value is what you still have when everything else is gone. It's easy to confuse income with identity. People get so caught up in status symbols that they forget who they really are. But the truth is, you can be rich and still be insecure. You can be wealthy and still feel empty. Money can buy you distractions, but it can't buy you purpose. It can buy you followers, but not self-respect. You don't become more intelligent, more focused, or more determined just because your account balance increases. These qualities are born and refined in the fire of adversity, not in the glow of abundance. Some of the most capable, visionary, and disciplined people have had to prove their worth without a single dollar to their name. And in doing so, they discovered a power inside themselves that money could never give them. They found confidence rooted in effort, not appearance. They found peace rooted in purpose, not possessions. They found meaning in progress, not in comfort. And that kind of internal wealth, the kind you can't spend but can always rely on, is the real foundation for success. True worth is built from within. It's how you treat others when you have nothing to gain. It's how desire, belief, and action form the unshakable foundation of all meaningful success. They are the real currency that determines how far a person can go, regardless of their financial circumstances. You can take away someone's money, but if you don't take away their desire, their belief in themselves, and their willingness to act, you haven't truly taken anything at all. Because those three forces are more powerful than anything that can be measured in dollars. Desire is the spark. It is the emotional hunger that fuels every dream, the internal fire that refuses to be extinguished. When you have a burning desire to change your life, to break out of your limitations, to become more than your current circumstances, nothing can stop you. You become focused. You begin to see opportunities where others only see obstacles. You stop making excuses because the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. Desire gives you a reason to keep going when it's hard, when it's lonely, when it feels like no one else believes in your vision. But desire alone is not enough. It must be backed by belief. Belief is the invisible force that shapes your reality. If you don't believe you can win, you won't even try. If you don't believe you deserve better, you'll settle for less. Belief transforms obstacles into challenges and failure into feedback. It turns effort into certainty. It gives your actions meaning, and it gives your goals a destination. Without belief, even the strongest desire will die in doubt. But when you believe deeply in your ability to achieve, your actions become more than tasks. They become steps in a journey you know you're meant to complete. Action is what brings desire and belief into the real world. It is where thoughts and intentions become results. Dreams are born in the mind, but they only survive if they are followed by consistent effort. Action is the proof that you mean what you say. It is the discipline to show up every day even when you don't feel like it. It's the courage to take the first step without knowing exactly where it will lead. Action creates momentum. It builds confidence. Every small step taken in the direction of your goals is a signal to your mind that you are serious, that you are committed, that you are not waiting for the perfect moment, you are creating it. People often wait for money before they pursue their goals. They think they need funding, connections, or the right conditions. But history proves otherwise. The people who achieve the most are rarely the ones who had everything handed to them. They are the ones who started with a fierce desire, an unshakable belief, and the relentless discipline to act every single day. They didn't wait for the right time. They used what they had, where they were, and kept moving forward no matter what stood in their way. The mind is the birthplace of every achievement, every innovation, and every success that has ever existed. Long before anything appears in the physical world, it is first imagined, shaped, and believed in within the mind. The skyscraper was once a sketch, the invention once a question, the business once a vision. Everything that you can see and touch began as a thought, and that simple truth reveals the most powerful resource anyone can ever possess, the ability to think, to imagine, and to direct the mind with purpose. It doesn't matter what your current circumstances are. You could be broke, unemployed, overlooked, or ignored. But if your mind is focused, disciplined, and full of clear intention, you are already in possession of the first ingredient of success. You have the power to design your future before it exists. The challenge is that most people don't use their mind intentionally. They let it wander, they let it absorb negativity, they let it be shaped by fear and distraction instead of vision and belief. They react to life instead of creating it. But when you learn to control your thinking, you gain access to something that no one can take from you. The ability to see possibilities is not about being positive for the sake of being positive. It's about understanding that your current reality does not limit your future unless you allow it to. What you feed your mind becomes your perspective. If you feed it doubt, fear, and negativity, your actions will reflect that. If you feed it faith, clarity, and bold vision, your behavior will rise to meet it. Your thoughts influence your emotions. Your emotions influence your behavior, and your behavior shapes your outcomes. It all starts in the mind. Limitations are rarely rooted in the external world. More often, they live inside the mind. What holds most people back isn't lack of money, connections, or time. It's the internal belief that they can't go beyond where they are. That belief becomes a wall, invisible but powerful, convincing them that they're stuck, that success is for someone else, and that growth is reserved for those with advantages they don't have. This mindset becomes a cage, one that traps potential and blinds people to the possibilities in front of them. Circumstances may be difficult, even unfair, but they do not determine the final outcome. The mind interprets everything, and what it decides becomes reality. Two people can face the same challenge. One sees opportunity, the other sees defeat. The difference isn't in the situation, but in how the situation is viewed. Limitation is a lens. If you believe that your background, your past mistakes, or your current conditions define your ceiling, then they will. Not because they're absolute, but because you've chosen to stop pushing beyond them. The most dangerous thing about self-imposed limits is that they often go unnoticed. People call them realistic goals or being practical or knowing your place, but underneath that language is fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. So instead of taking bold action, people shrink. They lower their ambitions. They play safe. They spend more time explaining why they can't than figuring out how they could. And over time, this mental pattern becomes so normal that it starts to feel like truth. But the truth is far more empowering. Human beings are adaptable, creative, and capable of extraordinary transformation. History is filled with individuals who came from impossible situations, who had every reason to quit, and who were counted out by everyone around them, yet still broke through. They didn't do it by waiting for permission or for conditions to change. They changed what they believed about themselves. They stopped giving power to excuses and started giving power to possibility. To break through limitations, you must first recognize that they are often self-chosen. That voice in your head that says, "You're not ready, you're not smart enough, you don't have the resources," that voice isn't a fact, it's a pattern. It's been shaped by past experiences, opinions of others, and moments of failure. But just as it was created, it can be reprogrammed. You can challenge it, interrupt it, and replace it. Your future is not controlled by your conditions, but by your decisions. When you start deciding to think differently, to see every problem as a lesson, every obstacle as training, and every setback as fuel, you begin to dissolve the limits that once held you back. Your environment may not change overnight, but your perception of it can. And once your mind expands to accept new levels of possibility, it cannot go back to its old size. That shift is what unlocks the path forward. Progress doesn't require perfection, and success doesn't wait for ideal circumstances. The journey always begins with what's available right now. Far too many people delay their dreams, waiting for the perfect moment, the right amount of money, or the ideal set of tools. But progress is built on momentum, not ideal conditions. If you're always waiting to feel ready, you'll be waiting forever. The truth is, you'll never feel completely prepared. Growth requires stepping into uncertainty and trusting yourself to figure it out along the way. Using what you have is not a limitation, it's a power move. It forces you to get creative. It demands resourcefulness. It teaches you how to make something out of nothing, how to maximize every ounce of time, energy, and skill you possess. Some of the greatest breakthroughs come from people who had less but thought more, who couldn't afford luxury but mastered discipline, who didn't have connections but built relationships through effort, consistency, and authenticity. The tools may be simple, but the intention behind them makes all the difference. When you start where you are, you begin to engage with reality instead of fantasizing about a perfect future. You get honest about your current position, and that honesty becomes your fuel. It becomes the reason you work harder, stay longer, learn faster. You stop wasting time comparing yourself to others and start focusing on your own lane. And that shift in focus is where confidence begins to build, not because you've arrived, but because you're finally moving. Action in the present moment builds momentum. Even small steps compound over time. One idea followed through consistently will outperform 1,000 ideas left untouched. Most people overestimate what they need to begin and underestimate what they already have. They think success starts with more resources, more knowledge, more support. But often it starts with less distraction, less waiting, less fear of failure. It starts with the decision to show up anyway. There's power in imperfect beginnings. Every expert was once a beginner, and every master once made mistakes. The people who go far are not the ones who waited for confidence. They're the ones who took action before they felt ready and built confidence through repetition. By showing up daily, by giving what they had even when it wasn't much, they built strength, skill, and resilience. Progress didn't happen because conditions changed. It happened because they did. What you have right now might not be everything you want, but it's more than enough to take the first step. One decision, one effort, one disciplined move in the right direction begins to open doors that would have remained shut if you stood still. As you move, you learn. As you learn, you adapt. And as you adapt, you grow into someone capable of handling more, achieving more, and becoming more. The starting point isn't what defines the outcome. It's what you choose to do from that point that determines how far you'll go. Wealth that is built in silence and grit carries a strength that can't be shaken by time, criticism, or setbacks. It is forged in discipline, shaped by persistence, and proven in private long before it ever becomes visible to the world. While many chase recognition, quick wins, and surface-level success, those who build something real understand that the foundation must come first. And that foundation is laid in quiet moments of consistent effort when no one is watching and nothing seems to be paying off yet. There is a certain kind of dignity in working while unseen, in choosing to wake up early, stay focused, and keep promises to yourself, even when there's no applause, no external validation, and no guarantee. It's in those private hours that true character is formed. When success finally shows itself, it's only the outer reflection of an inner transformation that has already taken place. People may see the results, but they will never fully understand the struggle, the sacrifice, or the persistence that made them possible. Grit is the unseen ingredient behind every lasting achievement. It's the decision to keep showing up when it's inconvenient, to push through doubt when your motivation fades, and to trust the process even when progress is invisible. Grit isn't glamorous. It's not loud or exciting. It's quiet, steady, and relentless. It's doing the work every day, not just when you feel like it. It's building habits that outlast mood swings, distractions, and disappointment. And over time, that kind of effort compounds into something unshakable. In silence, you're free from the noise of other people's opinions. You're not performing for an audience. You're developing your craft, strengthening your mindset, and anchoring your purpose. You learn to work not for attention but for mastery, and that shift changes everything. When you no longer need validation to stay consistent, you become unstoppable. Because most people quit when recognition doesn't come fast enough. But those who build in silence keep going. They're not chasing approval, they're chasing growth. There's also power in letting your results speak for themselves. When you focus more on execution than on explanation, your life becomes the proof. You don't need to convince anyone of your potential. You simply live it. People will wonder how you got there, what your secret was, why your results seem so strong and grounded. And the truth will always trace back to the grit they didn't see and the silence they didn't hear. Lasting wealth, whether it's in finances, relationships, health, or personal strength, is built through discipline that's often invisible to others. It's in the early mornings, the late nights, the rejections endured, the failures learned from, and the decision to keep building even when nothing looks promising. These quiet moments of commitment form the backbone of success. They create depth, resilience, and a level of self-trust that can't be bought or borrowed. They prepare you for more than just the outcome. They prepare you to sustain it once it arrives. Your journey isn't just about reaching a destination. It's about the transformation you undergo along the way. The struggles you face, the obstacles you overcome, and the lessons you learn all become part of the story that will one day inspire others. When you look back on your path, you'll realize that the value wasn't just in the goal you achieved, but in the person you became while striving for it. The journey becomes a testimony, a living proof that growth and success aren't defined by where you start, but by how you choose to evolve in the face of adversity. Every challenge you encounter is not just an obstacle, it's an opportunity for growth. When you're in the middle of a struggle, it can feel overwhelming. It may seem like progress is impossible and the road ahead is too long. But in those moments, you are building resilience, patience, and problem-solving skills. These are the qualities that will carry you through the inevitable setbacks you'll face in the future. Without facing adversity, you wouldn't learn how to navigate the complexities of life. The tougher the journey, the stronger you become. And as you grow stronger, your ability to achieve more, endure more, and give more to others expands. Your journey also becomes a source of inspiration for others. People will be drawn to your story, not because you had it easy, but because they can relate to your struggles. They will see their own challenges reflected in your experiences and find hope in your triumphs. When you share your journey, you show them that the seemingly impossible is possible, that success isn't reserved for a select few, and that no matter how hard it gets, there is always a way through. Your testimony doesn't need to be perfect, it doesn't need to be flawless. What matters is that it's real, raw, and full of courage. It's the truth that there is no success without sacrifice, no victory without persistence, and no growth without discomfort. The most powerful stories are those where the hero doesn't give up, where they face adversity head-on and find strength they didn't know they had. Your story will become a roadmap for others who find themselves in similar situations. They will learn from your mistakes, celebrate your successes, and find comfort in the fact that they are not alone in their struggles. You become proof that if one person can rise from their challenges, so can others. Your journey, therefore, serves a greater purpose than just your own success. It becomes a beacon of possibility for everyone who is watching. But the true value of your journey lies not in the recognition you receive, but in the impact you have on others. When you walk the path of perseverance, when you share your journey with authenticity, and when you remain consistent in your efforts, you empower others to do the same. Your testimony is an invitation for them to believe that their own journey, no matter how difficult, can lead to their own transformation. And in that way, your success becomes not just your own, but a shared victory for all those who are inspired by your example.